Hello, and welcome back to our series where we are building a people and culture management system. We're currently focused on the total reward section of that PCM. This series is brought to you by Prairie HR Solutions. My name is Jake Finger, founder and principal consultant for Prairie HR Solutions. And in this video, I want to take what we did with our division drop down box and do the same exact thing with our job title box. And if you haven't watched our last videos or those videos leading up to this point, I would highly suggest you do so because we covered quite a bit. And what we did, where we left off, was we created a scatter plot, and this is all of our employees and their data, their pay data, and it is salaries by experience, and then the color code indicates gender identity. And what we did in our last video was we took this division drop down box, which holds all of our divisions, and we created a filter function on our server side to filter all of this data and only populate whatever division or value it was here in this dropdown. So we can say, operations, and then it'll filter only by the operational employees. And what's interesting about this, when you think of a PCM, uh, PCM at its initial face value is a quick look. It offers a quick look into your current state. And then you can open the door further and then start going into exploring deeper that current state. So then you can start modeling and projecting the future state or gaining clarity or a clear vision into how to get to that future state, the pathways. So what we have right now is just that initial look. We're looking right inside the door, but looking at this, you can see, okay, well, we're not that bad. I mean, we need to run some standard deviation pieces in here to figure out just how far off, the average is. But that really isn't going to mean anything at this point because this is all the employees. This is IT, finance, HR, facilities. But looking at this, if you're just glancing at this, there are some things that should be standing out to you. We're okay here about 50 to 100,000. It looks like most people, are right here around 70-ish. But then you have this group of people up here, and that's going to lead any leader or HR professional to question, well, what's going on with this right here? We just brought somebody in almost 5 years ago, and they're making 145K, 143, 128. It seems like, what's going on right here? Is this all of our executive team? Is that what this is? And by being able to filter, we can select that executive division and see, woo, it's not the executive division. Now, this is just our random data. So, it's just kind of where the chips are falling right now based on that random populated data. But we're able to see, okay, it's not our division. So who is it? Is it facilities? And you look at our facilities and you're like, okay, so now we have an issue because we have individuals in our facilities that are making, $50,000 more than our executive team. And what that's allowing you to do is say, okay, now we have identified what it is that we are not liking as a business and is not fitting, whatever comp philosophy or strategy that we have. And through this simple little dashboard here, we're able to then start formulating a path forward. Now, what I would like to do next is not only filter by division, but also do the same exact thing with the job title. I don't want to connect the two yet. Ultimately, we would like to filter finance and then only filter those, financial positions. But for now, to get it functional, I would like us to filter specifically by job title. And this is going to be fairly easy. All we have to do is the same exact thing that we did for the division for the job title. So let's go back to our code here. Let's see, operations, total rewards. Here we are. And really all we want to do is grab our data here. And every time this is changed, this job title here is changed, we want to run this function, this comp filter, and the event. So let's go find that get comp filter. And here it is. And if you remember right, we wrote an if statement and then nested another if statement in there. And this nested if statement is simply to do something when that value is at choose dot dot dot. It's that default value, so to speak. And we just clear it and populate it with everything. But now what we can do is grab this and run it. And we still want to process the data and draw the chart. We still want to do that, but this is going to have to change because this is our Google Apps Script code. And this time we're not going to want to pass this variable. We're wanting to pass the comp jobs variable. And I know y'all are probably thinking, well, why don't we just combine them together right now? And the reason I don't want to do that is for a couple reasons. I want us to get clarity on the operations first so we can have a function for each select boxes just so we can get the operations and the why behind the functions down. And then once we get it functional and understand that why, then what we can do is go through and then combine and clear up. The second piece is there are times when we're sitting in the C suite and you have job classes in multiple divisions and you are wanting to see the pay spectrum, or if you're having any disparities or whatnot, compression, whatever it is you're looking for, across the divisions for a specific job class. Like, think about if you're getting ready to do a market study on, say, front end developers in your IT division. Well, there may be front end developers in your operation, there may be front end developers in your finance. It all depends on your business structure. So you need to look across the divisions and filter it down specifically by job title. And what we would want in that case is the function already created. And then we can just figure out where that function lives or that block of code. And that's essentially what we're doing when we're cleaning up the redundancies in our code, just trying to figure out where it's going to live. Okay, so we have this piece. We don't want to do a get comp div filter. What we want to do is get jobs filter. And now what we can do is come over to our analytics file and simply, let's just go ahead and simply grab this, and then we'll change this because this is not going to be the division, and this isn't going to be the div value. We'll just call this the jobs value, and this is going to be the jobs value. And we'll change this variable to jobs. And now we're wanting to take this variable and then map that. Okay, good. So now what we need to do is change some of our index numbers here. So when we were looking at our division, we were filtering the rows by the index at 0. And if we come over here to our sheet, to our compensation side, our index 0 was actually our division. Now what we're going to want to do is actually filter by job title. And that job title is at index 1. So this here shouldn't be 0, this here should be 1. And that is going to be the value of whatever's coming over to from our HTML side. So let's actually, to illustrate this, let's put this into a variable, and then let's log out that variable. Now we don't have anything coming over. When we run this, we're not actually going to get anything because we don't have a value here. Nothing's coming over. But what we can do is come over and grab, like, manager. We'll just use manager as the job title. And we'll just hard code it in there like we did previously. And then we can save this and then run it, and we should get something back. Ideally, we should get all the data back that has manager in that second column, or the index number 1. And we do. It looks like out of our 50 employees, we have 1, 2, 3 managers. And remember, this is an object, so I know sometimes it comes in out of order. And if you remember, how we access data within it is a value key pair. So the experience is going to equal this value. The salary is going to equal this value. So we're not actually tapping into a object based on its index. We're tapping into it on its key value pair. So that's the reason why that exists. So let's get rid of this, and let's turn this back to return. And that should take care of our Google Apps Script side. So we filtered it, and then we mapped it by each row and constructed an object out of that. So now let's go back here to our total rewards and just check to see if everything's good here. Back that up. So okay, that should be good. So let's save this and come back over here to our page here. Okay, so we have all of our data. And if we select a job title, it should update that, and it does. So it updated that with the specific job title. Not sure if we have a full stack developer. We're just going to need more jobs, actually, is what this is telling me. Curious to see how this is going to work here. Now, these are separate. Okay, so what we're actually getting here is the same data over and over, regardless of what it is that we are selecting. So let's go to manager. Yep, we're getting the same exact data regardless. So let's go back and figure out why that is. Yep. So let's find 4.2 at 40,000. So let's come over to our sheet and figure out exactly what it's pulling up. So it's pulling up, So it's pulling up a manager and a manager and a manager. So what that's meaning is it's only reading manager. And I'm almost positive I know what we did. So let's come back over here to our code, back to our analytics, and you'll see that it's doing what we told it to do. We just have hard-coded manager in here. So regardless of what we enter in there, it's only going to read manager. So we got to change this back. So that's what's going on there. So let's save it. And now let's go back. We'll refresh it to pick up that change in our code. So now when we come up here and press HR Analyst, yep, there we go. Now it's working. Now it's showing us all the HR analysts. Obviously have a very well-paid HR analyst up here. And we can do an internal affairs analyst. There's some serious stuff going on there. Customer service representative. Okay, so it doesn't look like we have any customer success representative. Customer service rep is there. And building. Okay, good. So now we've created two different filters, and these aren't connected. But what's happening is they're calling the same exact function. And if we were to come up and select a division, right now what it's going to do is simply overwrite that. Like if you look at what our finance is, and then we change help desk coordinator, so it's going to run it independently every single time by that filtered data. So we do marketing, we go back to finance, and as you can see, it essentially overwrites everything, which is a problem. However, now we have two blocks of code that actually run each one of these drop down boxes and filters based on that. So what we could do before we join these, what I would like to do is create a couple more boxes, because ideally what we would also like to know is if we come up here to choose and then say facilities, what we would like to do is to know things like the average pay for these employees, perhaps the average tenure of these employees. And we can even, if we think about, how we can build onto this, and if you so choose, you can, but we can build on other things like last performance reviews, things like that. So let's just toss a couple more boxes in here. The ones that I want will be average pay and average years of experience. So let's come over to our Bootstrap page here, since that's what we're using as a front end toolkit. And we don't want a drop down box. What we want is just some simple boxes here. This will work. Just grab this simple one. And what we're wanting to do is to make these disabled. We don't necessarily want to have users enter this because it's just reading the data. We just want them to see the data as it's read. So let's go in here to floating labels and see. Yeah, these floating labels are nice, but one thing that I've noticed, it takes a good amount of extra work to keep these inside the box when you zoom in or you're on a different view point or whatever. Okay, looks like we got some validations, selects, and okay, so this looks like a disabled box. So let's see how they're doing that. It looks like they're just simply doing disabled in there. Okay, good. So let's come back to our code here. We can work with that. And let's find a place that we're going to want this. So we want it right underneath these two boxes. And you'll see that this is a row and a column. So going back over here, so this whole thing right here is a row. And then in this row, we have two columns. Which is good, which is what we want. But what we want to do is inside this column here, we want to add those two new input fields. So we can simply put these here within that column, and yes, it'll overflow it, but let's just see how that's going to look right now. Because essentially it's just going to go over the columns, and we'll have to do some fixing here. Okay, perfect. So now maybe we just don't want it to be, maybe we just don't want it to essentially be, two lines. What we would like it to be, though, is maybe side by side, average pay, average experience. And to do that, we need to think about our hierarchy, so to speak. So we have a row, and then within that row, we have two columns. And then within the second column here, we now have this and this. We haven't declared this as a row or anything like that. We just put two boxes in it and now four boxes in it. And then to make it fit, it just overflows it down to the next line. So let's clean that up a little bit. Let's come back over here. So what we could actually do is within this column, which ends right here, we can create ourselves a little bit of a space. And then let's try and do another row. And then within that row, let's give this first box a column. And when we think about how our structure here works, this child element, so to speak, belongs to this parent, and this parent belongs to this column, and this column belongs to that parent. So it's a hierarchy that you can build, lower and lower into. And you'll see that here in a second. So this is going to be closing out our column. And what we should do is take all this and indent it. And then we also need now another column. And then an end to that one. So actually we could just grab this, put that right there. And then we need to close out that sub row. Oops. Okay, so now if this works, we should be able to have created a row within that second column that also consists of two columns. So let's come back over here and see how that looks. And each one of those columns is 6. So you see how that happened there? Now we have it within this second column, another row that consists of two columns that are 6. So let's go ahead and add in our labels here just real quick. And these labels will expand into the input text, which is fine up to a point because we want to be able to read the data that's put in there. So this is going to be that, and this is going to be average experience. That'll work. Dot. And maybe what we can do here is add another span. And this is going to be $signs. And then we can add another span here after the input. That will be years. Okay, good. Let's save that and see how that goes. Yep. That looks good because now, unless somebody has, a few millennia worth of years of experience or is making more than 6 digits, we should be able to populate the stuff in there. Now, see this username piece? This username is what's called a placeholder. So we want to change this placeholder, and let's give our things an ID as well. So you'll see this placeholder is username. So this placeholder, let's just do something like that. And for this one, we can just simply do this. And our label is not going to be username, it's going to be average salary. And let's change, and we can worry about this. I'll worry about changing these IDs here and that described by. I'll think of something creative. What we do want to do, however, is give this an ID. And let's give this ID comp av salary. And let's do the same to this. Let's give an ID of comp av experience. Good. So now we can actually access those, because what we would like to have happen is once we filter, see, there we go. As you can see, sorry, I see it didn't switch, but get you caught up here. What we did was I changed this placeholder that was username to something else. And since we're doing dollars, I just did the dollar format and changed this one to the years format, and then changed our label for our screen readers to something that actually is descriptive of the input field instead of just that username. And then I also gave each input field an ID, so we'll be able to access it. So let's save this. And if you're following along, what I'm going to do offline is I'm going to do this same exact thing up here to our division and our title, make this its own row and make this its own row, just to keep it clean. So let's come back over to our form here, and you'll see how that changed. So now we have our placeholders in here, and of course we can type, but remember we do need to set this to disabled, and we have the second span, average years, average experience, and years. So let's go ahead and set these to disabled real quick. And how we're able to do that is in our input tag, we simply come to the very end and type disabled since we're using Bootstrap. And that was on this right here. This is where I got it. That's how you just simply create it disabled, is you just type in disabled, which is pretty handy that they already did the work for you. And this input, we also come in here and type disabled, and then we can save this and then come back to our form here, refresh it, and you'll see that try as anybody may, they are not able to select nor type these boxes in. And what we're wanting to do is once we filter something, we want to be able to grab the average of this for the experience as well as the salary and receive this. And we're able to do that on our Google Apps Script side. Because we already have that data, we just need to run the calculations. So that's it for this video. If you like what we're doing, please hit that subscribe button so we know to keep going in this direction. If you do have any ideas or requests of topics that you would like to see us put together or how to solve, shoot us an email. Our email is in that description box. We'll be more than happy to put something together. And until next time, please take care.